Trajan kind of hit on it. Like, there's a lot of players that might go back to college with NIL. And the Pistons are sitting with the 37th overall pick. So, do you think the Detroit Pistons should just stand pat and just draft a player in the second round, have a cheap contract? Or do you think they should try to trade it away for maybe a veteran to fill out the roster? Maybe they package a player in a second to try to get better that way. Sean, what do you think the kind of thought process for the Pistons may be?
I think the thought process is going to be that they probably don't value this pick as much as they do say 2 years ago, right? Like when the depth of the draft was higher. However, I think because of the fact that with the league being the way that it is, the first and second aprons being as constraining as they are, and with some of those looming financial decisions that the Pistons do have to make, these second round hits potentially become even more valuable. So to me, even if they don't even keep the player in the long run, I still think they keep the pick and they at least try to get some form of value or someone that can be a developing project kind of in the background. Almost because it's like if the Pistons can get a Bobby Klintman in the rotation
Mm-hmm.
and get like solid minutes from him and pay him very minimal salary compared to a lot of other players at his position, like that's kind of the way to keep sustained success in this new CBA is to hit wherever you're drafting and to find value wherever you're drafting. So although I don't think Trajan's like hanging up the phone if people are calling about this pick. I think he absolutely listens. And if the right offer's out there, you take it. But I also don't think they're going to be so quick to trade it just because of the fact that the money's going to get tighter quicker than people realize.
Yeah.
What do you think, Leggy? Like with this draft, are you someone that would want to stay at 37? Do you want to trade it completely to try to fill out your roster and get better that way, or possibly trading up in the draft?
Yeah, I know Trajan mentioned they might trade up if they like someone, but I think that's an obvious quote that didn't really need to be said because I think if you like a guy, you'll go get him anyway. But the big thing is I think in free agency, that's kind of where you're kind of looking to fill out around the edges. And in 37, you're kind of looking to just take some of those swings. And maybe it's those older prospects. And the NBA's kind of been going that way, especially with the new CBA and the two tiers or the two aprons. And I mean, we're seeing higher percentages of older players drafted. And so if we're able to get somebody that's had 4 years of collegiate experience, maybe even 5 in some circumstances, to get an instant contributor, you're not going to get a guy who is going to have crazy potential. Like Jaime Jaquez was the big one for me, and I guess he went in the late teens, 20s, but he's a guy who a lot of people, when they saw him play, are like, oh, he's good. He's going to be a star someday. That's kind of who he is because he's older, and we don't really need to take those huge swings. So at 37, you could really get a player, if you're lucky, that can come in and contribute right away. And like Sean mentioned, it's going to be a smaller salary, keep you out of the aprons for longer. And if you're lucky, it's a guy who does have that high potential.
Yeah, like I'm kind of looking like where they could get. And I was watching this kid today and actually reached out to a friend of the show, Bryce Simon from Motor City Hoops, because I wanted to ask him about Maxime Renault. I don't know if you guys know who that is. He's a 7'1" center that can stretch the floor, put the ball on the floor, block shots, and has a pretty good, good moves in the post. Can finish with his left hand and his right. And I'm just kind of looking at that prototypical like stretch 5, stretch 4. Then he tells me, he's like, yeah, some people have him in the lottery, but other sites have him like mocked in the 40s. I think if I were the Pistons and Mr. Ray kind of put this in the chat, talking about how Brooklyn, I think if you were to trade up, Brooklyn has multiple first round picks. If there's a prospect you really want to get him on a cheap deal, cheap contract, I think Brooklyn is the team to call. Now, would they want to possibly trade back in the second round? Who knows? They're rebuilding. They have a shitload of cap space this year. Who knows what they're going to do with it? Probably a bulk of it's going to Cam Thomas and others. But my thinking is I think they trade the pick and they package a player for possibly some more power forward depth, maybe center depth, maybe a Tim Hardaway Jr. replacement. Who could that be? Who knows? Um, the way I took Trajan's comments is I don't think that the Pistons are going to be adding a draft pick this year. Just my opinion. I just think the way that they're constructed, I think they're just looking for veterans. They're looking for contributors right now on the cheap. But that's just my opinion. I don't know how you guys kind of feel about this draft class. Obviously, we're not drafting in the first round because Minnesota gets their pick. Still getting a really early second. I think you get a good player there at some value, but I don't know. That's just my opinion. I don't know what you guys think.
I think there's something to be there. I think you're probably right. I don't think they value youth the way they did in the seasons past. Like I think they have a litany of young prospects and players that they are content with letting to see develop. And I think the way that this team gets better is by surrounding that young talent with veterans who can play and veterans who are ready to contribute now. And don't get me wrong, like as great as it is to get another draft pick and another, like solid rotation player that you could potentially that maybe like bears out in the future. At the same time, the importance of having guys that you can rely on that if they need to go into a playoff game, they can, I think would be massive. And I think to your point there, Anthony, like I think the more depth they could get at the power forward or center position, the better. Because I think you really saw the Pistons struggled when they had to take Jalen Duren out of the game. And when Paul Reed, like as good as Paul Reed played, like if he went down, what were they going to have done? Were we going to see Bobby Klintman come in and play some 4 or 5?
Probably, yeah.
Which this isn't against Bobby. This is just the fact that you're telling me his first significant or really his first NBA minutes of any substance would be to have to go up against the New York Knicks in a playoff series?
It could shatter his confidence.
Yeah. But also it's just like the fact that it's just that's how on thin ice they were when the Isaiah Stewart injury happened, right? Yeah. Like that's how much he really filled a lot of gaps for them. And so I think to your point, like if you could have an Al Horford on your bench,
yeah,
and know that you could bring him in, he could play the 4 or the 5. He could do whatever you need him to do. Like that's massive.
Yeah. You keep bringing in competition in veteran form instead of young form and rookies. I think that's only going to benefit these young guys, and especially like the Rons and the Bobbies. And even the Sassers, but keeping on bringing in older guys that will challenge you to continue to expand your game. So you're not trying to stay ahead of somebody. You're trying to get ahead of somebody at that point.
Yeah, it's a thing where like I think they have enough young talent. And they're just looking for more veterans and grown-ups to help push them and propel them up the Eastern Conference. It's not saying that any of these players in the draft couldn't be contributors and turn into something someday. I'm sure they could. I'm sure there's going to be 1 or 2 high risers that no one's talking about. It happens every year in the draft. But I mean, I feel like the Pistons have been rebuilding for 10 years and it hasn't even been that long. It just feels like that way because it's just been miserable outside of this season. It's been absolutely miserable. And this is the first year where I really don't give a shit about the draft.
Yep. I looked at a lottery for the first time, or a lottery mock for the first time, maybe like a couple weeks ago, maybe a week ago. And you start getting past 7, 8, 9. I'm like, oh, I have to do a little bit more research because last year, November, I was making mock drafts already. I was making 1 through 14 mock drafts. So it's a good time, and my hair is going to stay on my head longer because I'm not going to be as stressed around this time. So it's a good positive.
Yeah, I mean, like I was last year, like I was a Ron Holland guy. Like that's who I thought the Pistons were going to take. Even with Troy Weaver got fired, I still thought Trajan was going to take the best available, and I was right. But I mean, I'm just to the point where like when you get into second round picks, there could be so many guys available. Like I saw a mock draft have Danny Wolf going to the Pistons at 37. And I'm like, please no. Please no. Even though he's a Michigan guy, I can't. Like Pistons fans would crash out over the turnovers. Like, you kidding me? Like, it would be so bad.
Yeah.